Hi, I'm Jess,
Hi, I'm Kristen.
and this is ReDIScover, a conversation where we travel through everything that makes up the essence of who we are and how to live authentically and imaginatively.
Here, we invite you to join us as we explore and discuss a little bit of, well, everything.
From Disney to cultivating your most authentic life to deepening your relationships and talking about the real stuff.
We hope you'll find this a space that speaks to you, encourages you, and brings a little bit of magic into your day.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jess.
Hi, I'm Kristen.
And welcome back to this week's episode of ReDIScover. Happy November.
What? How is it November?
I don't know. I kind of feel weird saying that, actually. This year has flown by. This month, we are really excited about our theme. We mentioned this in our last episode, how excited we are, because we are honoring a beautiful concept that we both live by, and the people that we are interviewing in future episodes also live by. And that concept is basically extraordinary women doing incredible things. And that could mean pretty much anything, but we're really excited to expand on the core topic of that today in this particular episode.
I think when we thought of the theme, we wanted to keep it broad enough that it could apply to so many different people and so many different journeys, because the reality is that now more than ever, all of our stories are looking really different. I think, our parents' generation and their parents' generation, women, especially in their 20s and 30s, were all sort of becoming housewives and
still a valid path to take.
Yes.
There are other options now, which is really exciting.
Yes. Not invalidating that at all. There are more doors open to us than there have ever been in human history. And the concept of extraordinary women doing incredible things is entirely subjective, because it's really just creating the life that you dream of living, creating the life that your younger self imagined. I think that that's really what we wanted to focus on. And we're going to break it down a little. We're going to talk about success and what it means and what it doesn't, and challenging these beliefs and these societal norms that sort of get in the way of us being able to build the lives that we desire to live. And later this month, we'll be talking to a couple of very different but equally extraordinary women who are doing very different but equally incredible things with their lives, and just the way that they inspire us. But today we're kind of gonna do a little overview and talk about our own experiences a little bit. So, Jess, where do we want to start?
I think a good place to start would just be why it's so important to have these conversations. And I think that having these conversations is crucial, because as much as we have progressed, I think that it is very common still and very natural for us to fall back into these old patterns of expectations of society and what our timeline should look like. You go to college and you need to get a degree in a promising, quote unquote, field to have a successful life, and you need to get married and you need to XYZ and do all these things to have safety, security, success, quote unquote. And while this is a valid path, this is just one path. And it seems to be a prescription that we're all sold when we're younger. And whether or not that is a aligned fit for you, you kind of know based on how you feel about it. And I think that I remember feeling like, number one, how am I going to do that? Number two, am I able to do that? Like, do I have, quote unquote, what it takes? And there was a lot of weird self-doubt, and it also just felt kind of off, and not saying that I don't want a lot of those things, because I do, but I think that all of a sudden there was a lot of pressure on myself that I needed to do all of these things to actually live a full human life as a woman who was successful. So breaking all of that down, I think now being 28 years old, which is crazy to say compared to my 18-year-old self, that's a 10-year difference. I think that I've finally been able to uncover the fact that these are just concepts and they are not truths. They are belief systems that were kind of imposed. And it's very liberating to be able to look at them as like objectively,
Yes.
and not look at them as a need to accomplish, to live a full life. Because more and more, now that I'm growing older and I'm connecting with more people from all over the world, whether that be from working at Disney or connecting over the internet or just, watching different people's life journeys or talking to them in passing in person, it is remarkable how nobody has the same path, number one. But number two, how few people live that prescribed life that younger me thought was the one and only path that led to your success. So that's an awakening in itself. It's just a conversation that keeps happening more and more and more recently, especially since the pandemic, and people have been having change of hearts with their work situations. Yeah. It's just something to really think about.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I'm consuming a lot of media these days that is talking about how the dynamic of the workplace has changed since COVID, and how these conventional timelines that we've all sort of just like stepped into the flow of because it was just what was done, or it was what we were brought up experiencing or witnessing. That's all kind of starting to crumble away, and people are starting to say, you know what, I actually think I want a job that aligns with what I believe and what I'm passionate about and what my mindsets and my value sets are, rather than I'm just going to get a job that has to do with this degree that I got, that's going to pay the bills and give me this benefit and that benefit, and the things that all sort of have looked good on paper. The stereotypical scene in my mind is the like going to a family Christmas party or a holiday gathering with all of the extended family, and what do they ask you? What are you doing for a living, and are you still single? And those are sort of the things that the older generation has cared about. It's like when you're a kid and you're like, oh, if one more person asks me, how's school going? Like these are all very valid, important things, but they're not necessarily to do with you as a person, your fulfillment, your journey, the way that you are coming into your own in this world. And I would so much rather those conversations happen. And I think we're starting to get there. Even just from my own experience, I have found myself in situations where I have been willing to wait for the right thing, career-wise or job-wise. I've been in situations where I've also had to take a chance in order to make that happen and take a risk. I mean, I've been able to have jobs and job changes that have reflected who I am as a person, what I believe and what I value, and also have reflected the ways that I'm changing and what I believe and what I value and how it's different from who I was 10 years ago. And I think being able to acknowledge that and sit with that and really get real with yourself about that is so important. And that's another thing we're being more empowered to do as we see other people, like you said, on the internet, as we meet them in our day-to-day interactions who are living so differently. I think one of the best things that social media has done for us is open our minds and open our eyes to a whole world of possibility and of culture and life that doesn't look like what we know, and sort of helps us to realize maybe this path that I have assumed for myself isn't the only one. And I think as a kid, I never really knew like what I wanted to do with the rest of my life or who I wanted to be. I never really thought about the person that I would end up with, or the job I would end up with, or where I would end up living. Pretty much until high school, when we were just like so dead set on moving to Disney and working for Disney. That was the first time that I felt like I had any clarity as far as what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. I think as a kid, I sort of was presented with my mom's reality, or my, older female cousins or my aunts and what they were all doing. And I sort of thought, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. But I didn't know what I did want. I just knew what I didn't. So I was sort of consuming all these no's, like, nope, that's not me. That's not me. And I knew it wasn't me. I had enough like sense of self to know, but I didn't know what the alternative looked like yet. The more we allow ourselves to embrace possibility and not get stuck in, well, this is just what I'm supposed to be doing, then those possibilities tend to come find you, and present themselves as opportunities.
I agree. And I think you made a really good point about, what you don't want versus what you do, because I think in society and like innately in human nature, we often like focus on what we don't want. We very rarely take a step back and think about what we do want. Mm-hmm. So if you want a journal exercise, I've always got one.
Yes.
If you're at the point in your life where you are looking for, a career pivot or a relationship pivot or any sort of life pivot, write it down, because we don't think about it that way, but that is how you end up, whether you want to call it attracting or finding or working towards whatever that is. These things in your life, we could use career as the example here. That's how you get to that point. Mm-hmm. It's by putting your focus on it. And I think when we focus so much on not knowing, which I've been caught in that trap so many times, I go in circles because I'm like, well, I don't want that. I don't want that. I never really sat down to think about what I did want. And I think, a lot of beliefs came up like, oh, I don't know if I can. I don't, like, self-doubt would come up, or how would that even be possible? I think it's so important to just let yourself dream about it and think about it and imagine what it would feel like if it was a possibility. It doesn't have to be real. It can just be, your imagination. But those things can really come into fruition after some time. And it's funny, if you write that list down on paper, put it away, don't think about it for a few months, you might look back on it and realize that the thing that you end up doing is very similar to what you were looking for in the first place. So.
Yeah. I think it's kind of similar to the exercise of writing down all the things you want in a partner, right? Like, why are we limiting that to a person? And of course, dating is the act by which we find out what we don't want, because we date people and we find qualities or habits or, beliefs that we don't align with. And then we move on and we date somebody else. Jobs are the same way. Locations are like that. I thought of Glennon Doyle, actually, while you were talking, Jess, in her book Untamed, which I hope you've all read at this point, honestly. She talks about the concept of knowing, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, but the concept of knowing with a capital K. And I love to capitalize words when I want them to like mean more. It's such a like nerdy, nuancy thing, but I love the idea of that knowing. Even like as a child, me knowing what I didn't want and knowing who I was and not knowing enough about the world yet to see how those two things would bring me to what I was meant to do. And then the next thing I was meant to do. I wrote down, when we were kind of putting together some thoughts for this episode, I wrote down the best path is the one you actually move on. Because I think there's that saying, like, the best exercise is the one you'll actually do. I think the best movement or action is just the thing that you actually do. So whatever that looks like, whether it's moving somewhere or taking an interview for a job, not even taking the job, just taking the interview, or going on that date with someone, just doing the thing is going to propel you forward. Even if you don't get the job after you interview, even if you don't like the guy after you go on the date, even if you move somewhere and you decide after 6 months to a year that it's not really for you, and then you move somewhere else, nothing is that permanent. No thing that you do is going to be wasted, because you're going to learn something. You're going to learn more about yourself. You're going to learn more about who you are, what you want, where you're going, and why you're doing it. And I know that you had kind of a piggyback off of that about waiting to do things. And I'm going to let you talk about that, because I think you are like a perfect living example of not only just doing the thing to propel your life forward, but like not waiting to do it.
I think it's really important to take note of the things that do bring you joy and do spark something within you. I personally really have a belief that these things are not ingrained in you by accident. they are significant on your path and they are guiding you. And I think that a lot of times, because of all these misconceptions of society and these stereotypes, we kind of shut down those things, especially in the artistic field, anything in that, because you hear time and time again, all of the stereotypes, like that's not going to be sustainable, or that's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And as hard as it is, and I know it gets ingrained in a lot of our belief systems, I think if that's something that you're really passionate about and that drives your soul, I challenge you to challenge your belief systems and maybe pursue that because it lights you up, and trust that that is one of your passions for a reason. Of course, if other people can do these things, you can too. And if it's your passion, and if it's your knowing with a capital K, that's where I really believe, even though it's scary and there is a lot of risk involved, what if there wasn't risk?
What would you do if your life were free?
What would you do?
We ask it all the time, but I think every time we ask somebody else that question, my challenge for all of you is to ask yourself at the same time and listen to their answer, but also maybe that's a journaling exercise. Jot that down for yourself. Maybe every couple of months, reevaluate and see if your answer changes.
Moving on from that point and going into not waiting. Again, part of the societal prescription is to wait until you're married to go on the trip, or you're retired to travel, or you're X to Y, basically.
Yeah.
And
the conditional statement,
I mean, again, look at the older generations. They work for 40, 50 years, and then they retire, and then they go fishing and live in Florida. Great life. I love that. I do.
Love that for you, granddad.
I do. But do you want to wait? Do you want to work your entire life to only, have a few years of your life, if you are, God forbid anything happens with your health, if you're healthy or alive, to be able to do that. So I think maybe this is a millennial perspective. You know what? It is a millennial perspective because I am a millennial, but I think it is so important to embrace the now, because now is all you have.
Yeah.
If you're going to project all of the fun things you are going to be allowed to do to when you're 65 years old, there's no guarantee that you're even going to be here, number one. And number two, why wait? I know what a lot of you are thinking too. Finances, we need to talk about that. How do we, we have student debt, we have loans, we need to, I haven't even started investing yet. Well, that is also something to really think about. And I'm going to refer you to the best woman I found on the internet for all of your financial feminist questions. Her Instagram is her first 100K, and she is breaking down all of the stereotypes about women in finance and investing. And I've been following her stuff for quite a while. She has a podcast too. And I have all my investments set up now too, which is so exciting. And she makes it really easy, and she breaks it down so you can understand it and why it's so important for you to start investing when you are as young as you possibly can. And I think that more women need to start thinking about that kind of thing. So all of this to say, don't wait.
Yeah.
That's I think that's my motto, is just don't wait, because what are you waiting for? Because now is the only time that you have. Don't wait to invest. Don't wait to travel.
Now is the time. Now is the best time.
The best time.
Now is the best time of your life. Anyway.
Exactly.
No, I completely agree. And I think if the last year and a half taught us anything,
yes,
it taught us many things, but I think two of the things that you touched on really stick out as they relate to the last year and a half. And I think the first one is that whole idea of the essential worker, right? That came out of the pandemic. We were stripped down to the bare minimum. And what was the first thing to be eradicated? It was the arts. It was the things that bring us joy. It was the atypical career paths. Jess and I have many friends in that line of work, and we have both existed in that line of work at one time or another, or in that line of education. And it's always just sort of a like, so what do you actually do for a living? That's a real job? That whole anything that falls under the category of not actually a real job, quote unquote. But I think that the pandemic, the pandemic really made us realize that those are the things we miss the most. Those are the things that, the human spirit needs, more so than anything that's deemed essential. And that to me is enough to deem that career path worthy. The things that bring us joy, that bring us together, going out to a restaurant and enjoying a meal and laughing and telling stories and sharing with your friends, going out to the theater and seeing a show that stirs something in you, going to see a ballet, going to a museum and looking at beautiful arts and history that has been preserved over the years. Those things are all very worthwhile. And I think that the pandemic showed us just how much. And then the other thing that you touched on that I think the last year and a half has taught us is just the whole idea of not waiting, because I think there are so many of us, myself included, who have examined our lives before the pandemic and gone, man, I wish I would have done this or this. I wish I would have traveled to this place. I wish I would have spent more time thinking about this thing. I wish I would have worried less about this thing that doesn't really seem to hold up. We're all sort of starting to reevaluate that now, which is also seeping into the workplace conversation. When we talk about what we want our work-life balance to look like, that conversation has absolutely exploded over the last year and a half, because we're realizing we spend more of our lives working or at work or with our coworkers than we do with our families, than we do at home, than we do actually living life. And so that conversation has come to the forefront, and realizing, especially as women, because, we are in a space now where the most typical career path is not that of a stay-at-home mom or a housewife. And a lot of women are choosing to balance full-time jobs with raising families and with, maintaining a household. And in a lot of cases, the gender dynamic has not adjusted to balance that out. We're moving in the right direction of starting to have these conversations. We have also seen the definition of success change. And you touched on this a little bit before, but like what actually defines success, or what society has said you need to be successful. I think that has also changed a lot. I think that success is an entirely subjective thing. I think what I think of as success for myself in my own life is not what you are going to think of. It's not what the next person's going to think of. The idea that, you have to make a certain amount of money or live in a certain type of structure or own a certain type of car or go on a certain number of vacations per year to be deemed successful is such an Americanized concept. It's such a Western thing. My definitions of success is, am I happy and fulfilled every day? Do I wake up and go to work and experience the people I work with and experience the people in my personal life and the spaces and places that I exist in? And do I feel fulfilled and happy and like I'm contributing something good? Yes, yes, yes. Tick, tick, tick. All right, I'm successful.
And again, I'm going to ask you guys to ask yourselves, when was the last time you actually defined what success is for yourself?
Or have you ever?
Because I think that throws a lot of people off sometimes. Yeah. I've had friends who I'm just having like a heart to heart with, and I'll ask them that question and they're like, I've never thought of that before. Yeah. But I think, Kristen, exactly what you're saying is just that feeling of fulfillment and contentment. I think a lot of people equate success to money or career advancement.
Being able to afford to take care of myself is extremely important to me, and definitely how I define success. But I would argue that falls under the heading of contentment. If I'm able to provide for myself, I think as women, that's very empowering.
There is the whole conversation of, having a certain amount of money that provides comfort and some luxuries is like, of course, ideal. Like, yes, that is, just having that is success in itself, but there's layers of success. There's the monetary success, but then there's the personal fulfillment success. And then there's, personal relationship success. It's like a multi-layered concept. I kind of always look at life, and I don't know if this is morbid, but it's like we're only here for such a small speck of time in the grand scheme of the universe. It's kind of like, okay, what can I do to make this life the fullest that I can while I'm here and while I have the ability to create these things?
Yeah.
But the more that you can take in what you have now and like strive towards your dreams and take actions towards your dreams, being detached from how they pan out and how big and grand they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where you can find a lot of the fun, and you can still have such a fulfilling life no matter what it pans out to be.
Yeah.
And, the more you really align and get clear about your personal dreams, the more they tend to evolve. And they might not be the way you think, but they evolve in a way where you can look back and be like, wow, that really happened. And it's just, I think I find a lot of fulfillment in achieving dreams like that and having them be full circle. Being like, oh, my younger self would be proud of this because I'm here now.
Yeah.
And it's not how I thought I'd be here,
No.
but it relates exactly to what I was thinking when I was 13 and I wanted to move to Disney.
Yeah.
And now I'm living here and I drive home and see the fireworks, something like that. It's really cool.
Yeah. And I think we probably touched on this in the happiness episode, which we will link in the show notes, because that definitely goes hand in hand with what we're talking about today. But I think that allowing those little moments of realization that, oh, I'm where my younger self always dreamed of being, like pause in those moments, really stop and take stock of that and really let the significance of that fill you. Because I think that is one of the ways that I find the most contentment, or one of the ways I feel the most successful, is when I stop and look around and go, this is what I dreamed about. Even if it's something little, actually stopping to let that moment be as big as it can be when you're driving home and you see the fireworks. Yeah. Every time that happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And it never gets old to me that's a thing that people save money for years and years and years to be able to come and see once. And I can see them from my window in my apartment.
It's amazing.
It's so cool. And to think that, if I would go back and have a conversation with younger me, or if I could invite younger me to come over to my apartment and hang out, younger me would be like, you are so cool. I want to be just like you when I grow up. And that, to me, is also part of the way that I define success. Like, would younger me be proud of me? Would younger me be so excited about where we're at right now? Like, did we just do that?
She's very proud of you. Everything you just talked about with like realizing a dream is coming true, and also living off an unconventional path. So I'll give a quick summary, but this is like exactly what I'm experiencing right now is, as I mentioned a few episodes ago, I started living a nomad life now, and I moved out to Italy at the current moment with my boyfriend. To Italy. Yeah. And
she's
we're
trying to sound really humble about it, but you guys, Jess lives in Rome, like Lizzie McGuire.
It's crazy. So for about a month at a time, we're going to be able to stay in different countries and cities, which is incredible. And I think that thinking back on my younger self, even a few years ago, and envisioning and piecing together, like trying to figure out why I don't align with this conventional path, quote unquote. I've always been someone who wants to move all the time. I've always been someone who really is trying to like not be in one place for work all of the time.
And Enneagram 7, if ever there was one.
Exactly. And I'm trying to, spend all of my weekends doing new things and experiencing different corners of the world all the time. Especially in the past few weeks of being here, I have had moments where I've literally cried because it's just so beautiful to be like, I'm doing this. I'm not talking about it. I'm doing it. And it's liberating and freeing. And it took a lot. Like, you have to really evaluate your life, and you have to downsize your stuff, and you have to figure out like, okay, what am I going to do about, my car and and belongings and like get rid of a lot of things. And it all leads up to being here in this moment. And I'm walking around this country that I've dreamed about and that I have family heritage from. And I'm seeing these sites that I've dreamed of and watched movies of, and I have felt in my soul so called to. And it's the best feeling I've ever had in my life. And not to mention, I'm with this incredible boy that I love so much. Steven, I love you so much. It's like I'm so present with right now, and I'm so happy and content in the moment to know that the adventure is just unfolding, that it's like I don't feel like I need to have a plan to get to a checkpoint to do a thing, because I'm doing what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters. I'm finally, I think for the first time in my life, like not chasing something that I need to accomplish. I'm just living it. That is so freeing. And I say this in hopes of being an inspiration to anyone who's feeling stuck or low or frustrated or anything like that, because I have spent years and years of my life feeling like that and still accomplishing things and loving my life, especially at Disney. But there's always been like, you know, yearning for more. And I always ask myself, okay, how can it get better than this? And things just keep evolving, and you take the things as they come. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, but you know that like when there's moments like that and you get to that, it's all worth it. 100%. Any day that was difficult, it all leads you to your soul's purpose if you're willing to step into that journey.
This podcast is many things, and a time capsule is one of them. And I love that we have these, you know, if we go back over a year ago and listen to the very beginning of ReDIScover, the name of this podcast is it was so prophetic that we chose that name, because it really is such a journey. It's just a continuous rediscovery of ourselves, of the world around us, of places and people we don't even know yet. And I think where you're at right now, Jess, is such a testament to that, because you didn't even know Steven a few years ago, and now you're living in Italy with him. And if the you of 3 years ago would have told you that, you would have been like, I'm sorry, what? And then you would have been like, yep, that sounds like me, because it's true. And
I'm so grateful. I just need to put that out there too. It could just,
that's why I was like, she's trying to be really humble about it, but you guys, she lives in Rome. Like,
the most wonderful and exciting thing.
Yeah. And that is something that's so aligned with who you are. As long as I've known you, you know, you have been exactly as you described yourself. You have always been someone who's excited about what's coming and chasing something. And that chasing can get exhausting. That chasing can also lead you off of your path, because you feel like you have to keep up or you have to keep going. And sometimes being still, with a capital S, is so important too. And I think the last year and a half forced us all to do that a little bit, but it gave us time and opportunity to get really, I mean, just speaking about the two of us, really, really real and honest about what we want. And I am just so excited to see how that continues to unfold. And there will be noise from the people around you, especially as women, because I think it's just been societally more accepted to just let the men figure out what they want to do. And
we put meeting someone up on a pedestal.
I mean, let's just talk about the phrase sowing their wild oats. If a guy goes around and does whatever with whoever, we call it getting it out of his system or sowing his oats, or, you know, whatever before he settles down. If a girl does that, we call her some very derogatory things. That's just one example. I think that there have been several moments on my journey, and Jess, I'm sure yours as well, where people older than me or different from me, or people who are just quite frankly not me, have questioned a lot of things, and questioned them sometimes in a valid way. Sometimes they were valid questions. Sometimes they were questions I didn't have answers to, and that's so okay. You're not dumb or, God forbid, naive. How many times have women been called naive?
when people
You're
tell me
not
that.
naive if you don't have all the answers. You're not naive if you've decided that you just don't have it all figured out yet. You're not naive if you just don't know what you want yet. If you're still getting clear on that, that doesn't make you naive. That doesn't make you stupid or misguided or wrong. You're human. And the timing by which these things will unfold will be so perfect that you'll look back and go, oh, I get it now. So you just have to sort of imagine that moment when you're in a frustrating situation, because we have been in frustrating situations and seasons of life where we just feel like we're waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen. It makes it a lot easier for you to not only get the clarity about what you want, because you're not clouded by that expectation or by the anxiety of feeling like you've got to do the next thing, but also it just gives you peace and allows you to feel content where you are, which will make getting to where you're going all that much sweeter, because you'll be able to look back and appreciate the moments that you stuck it out and you waited and you worked and you didn't give up on yourself, because there are people in this life who will give up on you. There are people in this life who will disappoint you, but you don't have to contribute to that. Nobody else can live your life. You're the only person who can do it. So how are you going to do it?
Exactly. It's your choice. And when you look back, if you didn't have those waiting periods, when you did, you wouldn't have those moments where it's so mind-blowingly amazing and like you got there.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that it's not a destination. It's all a journey.
Mm-hmm. Even when you feel like you've hit the destination, it's still the journey.
Still a journey. You're going to have those moments where you're like, oh my God, I've made it. And then you're going to have more stuff, because innately we're always going to be yearning for more and for the next step, because that's just human. You know, like you were saying, stand up for yourself, choose what's authentically aligned to you, get rid of timelines. Your soul is not on a physical timeline in age and numbers and years. That's man-made.
Yeah.
Your soul's purpose and your path is internal, and it does not know numbers and time.
Yeah.
So just get rid of the numbers, get rid of the get married by 30 concept.
Oh my gosh.
If it happens, great. That's wonderful. That was your soul's timing. If it doesn't, great. You're still on your soul's timing, and it's going to be like at your perfect time. Really, I always tell myself, I'm like, it's all perfect.
It's all wham.
It's all wham. Basically. So anyways.
Perfect example of a woman who had a very unconventional timeline and an unconventional story, and has created such a beautiful life for herself that anyone on the outside would look at and go, well, this is interesting, but oh man, is she happy and fulfilled and perfect, because she is she. So yeah, that would be another episode I would suggest you go back and listen to if this is resonating with you, or if you just need an example, you need us to use it in a sentence, go listen to the Stacey episode ahead of the ones that are coming in the coming weeks.
That's a great one to listen to, the one with Stacey. And I also was going to suggest the one with Stephanie Styles as well.
Oh, yes. I was thinking about her when we were talking about the arts. Yes. Yes,
that's another inspirational woman doing incredible things. We are just so lucky to be in a community of women like that. I think every woman that I know can go under this category of an incredible woman doing inspirational things.
The cool thing about each and every one of them is they're all extremely different. None of them has a journey that looks like ours. None of them has a journey that looks like each other's. And we have not only found inspiration from all of them, we've also found, and here's the other thing, commonality with all of them. And so I think if we're going to wrap this up, it's sort of become a little bit of a cliche, but I think it's for a good reason. The idea that empowered women empower women. No matter what your story is, no matter how different it is from mine, I can learn something from you and you can learn something from me. We can learn from each other and build each other up, because your story is not mine. Your success, however you define it, does not take away from mine, however I define it. And you getting somewhere before I get there, or even though I might never get to where you specifically are, does not change the fact that that moment of, oh, I made it, oh, I can't believe I'm here, is still coming. and it will be so gratifying for you because of who you are. And I think that is the most liberating feeling, to not let anybody else's success take away from yours, not let anybody else's happiness put a damper on yours, because that's something that you're allowing. And the moment that I realized that, my life got a heck of a lot easier. I was way happier and I had a lot more friends. And that's the best. That's the best thing.
Great.
That's the best thing. The people you do life with are all on their own path. And I am a firm believer that the more people you can have in your corner who can inspire you and relate to you, but also challenge you and give you their own unique perspective, your life will be so much richer for it. I hope that this community can be that for each other. So I hope that you will feel empowered by this. I hope that you will pay it forward and empower the people in your life, especially the women in your life. And I hope that you will start to get radically honest with yourself about what you want and what your story is going to look like, because you're the only person who can write it. You are the author of your story, and it has to sound like you and feel like you and look like you for it to be beautiful.
We are all on our own individual paths. And I think if you struggle with that comparison or anything like that, just saying, okay, they're on their path and I am on my path, and there is enough in this world for both of us to be overly abundantly fulfilled in what we're doing, because it will be perfect for us as individuals. I love that. Empowered women empower women. It's so true. And it is, I think my female friendships mean so much to me. It's just this uplifting feeling of knowing that you're safe with one another and that you understand each other on such a deep level. And they're just relationships that can really be nurtured and cherished for the rest of time. Everything that we have to share for the rest of this month, I think, is going to inspire all of you and make you really excited and motivated to want to go out there and chase your dreams and your passions, and no matter what it looks like. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being part of our ReDIScover family and for empowering us in ways that I hope we empower you right back.
Yeah.
We love all of you. We hold space for all of you who deal with all of these things that we've also dealt with. I hope that a lot of the points we brought up today resonate with you, or are things that you've worked through, or things that you're just becoming more conscious of that you're untangling. And sometimes it is uncomfortable. So it is nice to have the solidarity of all of us going through it together and rediscovering who we truly are at our core.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for being both extraordinary and incredible. Being able to share it all here has only enhanced our knowing with a capital K, and hopefully yours as well. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here this month. It's only going to get better from here.
We will talk to you in 2 weeks. You don't want to miss it. It's a super fun convo. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of ReDIScover.
Please subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening. Your reviews are what keep us going, and we'd love to hear from you.
Join us every Tuesday for a new conversation, and let us know what you think we should talk about next.
Follow us on Instagram at positively.kristen and at jessicafay508. And check out Jess's blog at theroadjesstraveled with 1l.com.
Until next time,
stay frumpy.